So we're very delighted to have Mr. Johan Norberg in the house. He's going to talk about open versus closed, the battle for the future of the world. Johan Norberg is an award-winning historian of ideas from Sweden and senior fellow at the Cato Institute. He has achieved a worldwide readership with books like Progress and In Defense of Global Capitalism, translated into more than 25 languages. His most recent book is Open, The Story of Human Progress, a book of the year in The Economist, which described it as clear, colorful, and convincing. He regularly hosts documentaries on development and economics for U.S. public television, including Economic Freedom in Action, The Real Adam's Meat, and Sweden, Lessons for America. Please welcome Mr. Johan Norberg.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation to talk to you today, and thank you to Liberty International for doing this, and to Movimiento Libertario Colombia. We sure need liberty in Colombia and Latin America and worldwide right now. Voices for liberty.
Recording in progress.
I salute your efforts and I appreciate what you do. And to all of you participants, speakers, audience, I'm delighted to be with you in the way I can be with you for the moment, because it is indeed a strange world right now. And, I'm trying to understand some of the mess we're in. It's a wonderful world and it's a mad world. I tend to veer between extreme optimism and despair. And that depends on whether I look at society or politics. Because if I look at society, I see innovators, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers continue to make amazing progress all the time. But at the same time, politics is all about beating up the other side. Instead of maximizing mutual gains, it's about taking as much as possible from the others and forcing your agenda onto them. And why is that? Mankind is amazing, but sometimes we destroy it all. We engage in group hatred, authoritarianism, we start class wars, trade wars, and real wars. If peace, free markets, and individual liberty is so fantastic, why do people keep rejecting it? And that is what I try to answer in this book, Open, the Story of Human Progress. And that's what I'm going to try to convey to you in this half hour. So it's about openness, but it's also about being closed. And to start with openness, what do I mean by openness? Well, I think you're familiar with the concept. A society that is not planned, not designed from any kind of blueprint, but is open to surprises, open to surprising ideas, discoveries, technologies, and business models. They might come from foreigners, from merchants, migrants, or they might come from people back home, from minorities, from eccentrics, from entrepreneurs, from individuals. The key is that those new ideas and methods, when they're conveyed to the public, they're not tested against a plan or a blueprint. Because if they are, nothing would ever happen, basically, because nothing brand new needs the approval from the rulers, from the majorities. It always starts with the eccentrics. And if they're allowed to try their methods out for a sufficiently long period of time, well, most of them are still failures, but some will turn out to change and improve the world for all of us. So the key is that ideas result. Well, that's what openness is about. And that has created the modern world. Because we're very good at it. We're very good at exchange and cooperation. But we also hate it. And that's what open versus closed is about. And that is my cat, if you wonder about the strange noises. My cat Sansa. Cats are by nature individualists, and they don't care about any kind of planned or planned, not even the ones that Liberty International organizes. So, my reading of history and evolutionary psychology makes me convinced that we have both open and closed. We are double nature. We are traders, but we are also tribalists. So let's begin. Sapiens conquered the world. We're not particularly strong, we're not that fast, we don't have claws or strong jaws, we can't even fly, and we're pretty bad at swimming. Why is it? It's because we have another kind of superpower. And to understand that superpower, look into a mirror. And if you don't have a mirror, look into my eyes. Look straight into my eyes, and then you notice the white of my eyes. Doesn't seem very strange or unique, but it is because they are primarily rivals. If they see a tasty snack or a potential partner, they don't want others to pick up their attention. For some reason, human beings turned out different. Our evolution put us on a trader path, where it paid off to reveal our attention to others, so that if we notice a potential prey somewhere, we want others to know that, because they can help us get it. If we notice a potential predator, we want the rest of our band to find out, so that they can help to surround that predator and throw stones at it. That's how we survived on that dangerous savannah 3 million years ago. Very strong. We had to inhabit another niche, and we inhabited the free trade niche, the cooperative niche, where we constantly traded ideas, the things that we hunted and gathered with others. And that we are weak, but we've got something else. We've got each other. Difference. Combine that evolutionary path with everything we've learned from competitive advantage in trade. Well, then you have the modern world. Because chimpanzees are so desperately poor because they have to be Renaissance men. They have to understand basically all the things that they are benefiting from. We don't. We can learn from each other. If someone picks up a new idea or stumbles onto a new invention, I can just look at it and borrow it, imitate it, and run with it. I can't read a virus genome, and I have no idea how my words are turned into ones and zeros and sent to the other side of the world, from Sweden to Colombia. And that's the benefit of modern civilization. It's all about trade. That's what Hayek talked about, the benefit of civilization, is that we can make use of knowledge that we do not possess, that we might not even be able to verbalize, just because we pick it up from others. Now, if we combine that with a very large population density, well, not compared to what we have today, but compared to a fairly impressive population density, then we suddenly get modern Homo sapiens, the last 100,000 years of a fairly great leap in culture, in use of technology and other things. Because with that large population and lots of people who understood the attention of others, well, then someone was bound to stumble onto a new discovery, a new idea, or a new innovation, and then we could borrow from that. That was sufficient to get us started. And eventually we began to develop certain institutions, often by mistake, often because just there were a couple of cracks in the wall. Institutions that made it possible for more people to look and to stumble onto more discoveries, more innovations, and to exchange with more people. Then we were really open to surprises, open to new technologies, open to the modern economy, the enlightenment, and the modern industrialized, now digital economy. And that brings us to classical history. Because when I promised to talk about the battle for the future of the world, That's partly true, but I wanted to start with the history of the battle of the world. Because we have had many golden eras, historically, in different cultures. Sunshine? No, it's careful not. We've had golden eras in different cultures, in different settings, on different continents. Pagan Rome, the Muslim Abbasid Caliphate, Song China, Catholic Renaissance Italy, the Calvinist Dutch Republic. No common denominator when it comes to the particular traditions or religions or the ethnicities or the linguistics of the place, but the common denominator was that compared to other civilizations at the same time, they were relatively open to trade, to migration, to new ideas from within society and from without. Montesquieu said that the main reason for the Romans becoming masters of the world was that having fought successfully against all peoples, they always gave up their own practices as soon as they found better ones. And this even goes for a vicious warlord as Genghis Khan, who was brutal, one of the most brutal characters in world history. But the reason why he could do it on such a massive scale was that he imposed open commerce, religious freedom within his Mongol empire. Writing about the Mongols, historian Jack Weatherford writes, because they had no system of their own to impose on their subjects, they were willing to adopt and combine systems from everywhere. They searched for what worked best, and when they found it, they spread it to other countries. So they were not liberals, they were not libertarians by any stretch of the imagination, vicious, ruthless empire builders and warlords, but the ones who succeeded did it because they understood the value of strategic tolerance, of openness to trade and to borrowing ideas from others, because they realized that that gave them access to the brains of other people, and that made them stronger. If they wanted to make their own civilization stronger than anybody else, they had to be as open as possible to all the other cultures, because that, even if you're the smartest people in the room, your room is always fairly small, and you have to be open to what goes on in other rooms to benefit from that. Now, when we have that kind of openness for a sustained period of time, protected by the rule of law, by property rights, by freedom to trade and associate, all these predictable institutions that make unpredictable behavior and surprises possible, then we get the quantum leap. The quantum leap that has made the modern world possible. For thousands of years, nothing much happened in the world when it comes to the average living standards of for the average citizen. But in the last 200 years, we suddenly increased life expectancy from 30 years to more than 70 years. We reduced extreme poverty from around 90% to around 9% today. That's why we are here, because we share our attention, we share our ideas, we exchange the best that we can do in exchange for the best that others can do for us. That's the magic of openness, of open markets, of open minds. And that's the good news, the wonderful news about the world. But there are also some bad news, and the reference to Genghis Khan kind of gave it away. We often develop this ability to cooperate harmoniously with other people in order to kill and steal from other groups and other tribes. Because once we learned how to cooperate, once Homo sapiens on the East African savannah 3 million years ago, or the predecessors, the early chimp-like ancestors of Homo sapiens, learned how to cooperate and stand in a circle around big cat predators, the lions, the saber-toothed tigers, the hyenas. Then we climbed to the top of the food chain, and no animal could ever threaten us again, except one. Other groups of people who cooperated even better than we did. So Unfortunately, this element of rivalry and of violence with other groups was there from the beginning as well. We always had to be acutely aware of who belongs to the other group, because it might be raiders attacking us, or it could be free riders within our group who just want the spoils of the hunt without actually contributing to it. So we became acutely aware of who's with us and who's not, of us and them, because between us there is often, unfortunately, a zero-sum game. As long as we do not cooperate voluntarily. But when there's a raid, when there's an attack, when there's a free ride, when someone steals and kills, it is a zero-sum game. So we had to be suspicious as well, not just open to others, but suspicious. So we're not just traders, we are also tribalists. And that has served us well in many instances, to be a little bit suspicious. But unfortunately, this fear of others and of other groups is designed in a world that was much more dangerous than our world, where any kind of mistake might lead to us disqualifying ourselves from the gene pool. So it had to be designed like a smoke detector, like a fire alarm, like in the room that you are sitting in right now. It is designed to be oversensitive, because it is better to set off 9 fake alarms than to miss one real fire, because that one real fire might mean the end of it. So we had to pick up any kind of cue that someone belonged to the other group, someone was not loyal to us, someone was out there to get us, to steal the spoils of the hunt, and does not want to contribute. And that is unfortunately the very strong evolutionary root to many of our collectivist sentiments. And here's a disturbing experiment for you about this. That tells you how arbitrary these group categories might be, these cues might be, and yet we become instantly loyal to the group that we belong to. Groups of students were in a psychological experiment where they were divided into groups. They never got to meet one another, but they were shown pictures of painters that they had not seen. Modern painters, Kandinsky and Klee. And they were also, so, who do you prefer? And then they were told, okay, you're a Kandinsky student, or you're a Klee student. And once they were divided into those groups, they were supposed to play an economic game to share certain rewards with other people, strangers that they never got to meet, that they would never meet in the future, but they were only told that they also shared your liking for Kandinsky or for Klee. And you might guess what happened next. The Kandinsky student wanted to reward other Kandinsky students and did not want to reward Klee students. Thus far, it's only about some sort of weird group egos. We want to reward people who share your attitude, even if it might be quite arbitrary. But it gets worse. They did not want to maximize the benefits for their own group. They wanted to create as large a difference as possible between their own group and the other group. So they were even willing to forego a benefit to another, if they were a Kandinsky student. They were willing to forego benefits for other Kandinsky students to punish the Klee students who had the wrong taste in art that they hadn't seen until 5 minutes ago. So that the moment we start to think of ourselves as belonging to a group primarily, not being individuals, we start to think of the world as a zero-sum game, where it's not about maximizing benefits for all of us. It is better to punish the other group and to create a maximum difference between our group and the other group. Sounds weird, sounds awful, sounds like some people just want to watch the world burn. But it makes perfect sense if you understand that this tribalist attitude comes from a long prehistory when the strength of the other group on the other side of the river or of the mountain, the strength of that group might be the end of your group, because you might be in constant warfare, or you must at least be acutely aware of that risk, because life was fairly brutal back then. And this is the problem that launched 1,000 economic mistakes and cultural mistakes. The idea that the world is a zero-sum game. And we often think that the world is a zero-sum game, that we cannot come to mutual agreement for mutual gain in trade, in exchange, in meeting, migration, in openness to new ideas and discoveries. We often think so because the world was often zero-sum. Not always, because we always engaged in long-distance trade. The first archaeological evidences of long-distance trade among Homo sapiens is as old as Homo sapiens, 300,000 years old. So we always understood that there were opportunities for mutual gains in trade, in production, in discovery. But sometimes the world was a zero-sum game, and sometimes it's often enough because of our oversensitive smoke detector. We had to be acutely aware. That's the problem. If I try to make this as graphic as possible, I divide the worlds, the world of Homo sapiens, the last 300,000 years, into 24 hours. Think of the last 24 hours. Then you see that nothing much happens for the first 23 hours. It's a very slow, steady progress, and lots of backsliding and backlashes. And over the average person's life, economic growth, cultural, technological, economic innovation wasn't sufficient to create something that you could interpret as a rising tide that lifts all boats. You didn't see that your lifestyle and the life of everybody else improved simultaneously. For most of those 24 hours, life was basically fairly brutal and poor, and economic growth didn't make a difference. And then suddenly everything happened in the last 200 years, and those 200 years over 24 hours, this 24 hours is just the last 60 seconds. And that's amazing that we get to live in those 60 seconds when everything happened. When life expectancy increased from 30 to more than 70, when extreme poverty declined from 90 to around 9% today. That's where almost everything comes from, except our instincts, our fears, our attitudes. Many of our belief systems and religious attitudes come from the previous 86,400 seconds, when the world was often a zero-sum game, at least between the bands, between the tribes, between the groups. And that's why many of our, large part of our reptilian brain is so obsessed with what others are doing and how we can beat them, how we can frustrate their efforts and their ambitions, how we can stop them from prospering and from getting rich, because we are afraid that someone who becomes rich and successful took it from us, because historically that's often what happened. If the other band, the other tribe, the nobleman, the king became rich, he often took it from us historically. And isn't that exactly what politics is about, and why it is so depressing? It's all about making us think that we belong to a group, and that we are at war with the other groups, and that we have to beat them up. The 1%, the rich, the other country on the other side of the river, the foreigners, the immigrants, the minorities, those who are different from us. They are out to destroy us and our lifestyle, and we have to fight back. And if you only hand all power to me, then I will protect you against them. It's a very natural, unfortunately, part of our set of evolutionary instincts, just as openness is. And it succeeds in times of crisis. That's my reading of history. That tendency is always there, to be fearful of the others and of what they are up to. And those demagogues and authoritarians, they often succeed in times of crisis when we are fearful. In times of depressions, economic depressions, military threats, natural disasters, or historically pandemics. That triggers fight or flight instincts in our minds. It triggers societal fight or flight instincts. When we want to be protected by the safety of the tribe, or by the strongman, or by big governments. And the dark irony is that we do this because we want to protect what we have. We want to protect our progress. But when we do that, when we undermine openness and freedom, that's how we undermine progress and safety. There is an old Eastern European story about a poor peasant farmer, Vladimir. And today is his lucky day, because suddenly God appears before him and says, "Today I will grant you one wish." And Vladimir rejoices and thinks about all the alternatives. But then God adds a caveat. He says, "Anything I give to you will be granted to your neighbor, Ivan, twice over." So it's not Vladimir's happy day, because obviously he doesn't like Ivan. So he frowns, contemplates, and suddenly lights up as he comes up with a perfect plan. "Okay, God, take out one of my eyes." Because if you take out one of my eyes, obviously you have to take out two of Ivan's eyes. And then I'll maximize the difference between our two groups. Now, we don't act like that individually, of course. And that's what makes the story so bizarre. But as soon as we think that we're members of a tribe, of a group, in a Zerosum Game with the other groups, then we start acting like that. Then we start to undermine, engage in conflict with them, in confiscation. We build walls, we start trade wars, class wars, real wars with others. We pick up one of our eyes so that we hope that they lose two eyes. And this turns all the popular perceptions upside down about ruthless markets and individualists, and of beneficial, warm, fuzzy politicians and governments. That's a very popular perception, that we're so ruthless and greedy as individuals, but collectively we are enlightened and we can live in harmony. On the contrary, as individuals, when we meet other individuals, we try to maximize mutual gains. We try to see what they want that we can contribute to. That's why we have that double thanks in any kind of market, in any kind of boardroom, in the grocery store. We thank each other because we've done each other a favor. That's how we act as individuals. That's how we act as in civil society, as families, as friends, on the market. But the moment that we think of ourselves as a group, as a collective, and we play Zerosum Game against the others, then we have to defend ourselves against them, and then we try to maximize not mutual gain, but difference against the others, so that we're not hurt by them. And that's a very strong argument, I think, to turn as many decisions as possible into voluntary individual choices, rather than collective decisions, which we force onto the minority. When we turn live and let live into eat or be eaten, that's what we do when we start to act politically, collectively, in conflict, in a protectionist, in an authoritarian manner. And that's an important contributing factor behind why the golden eras of history were ended. Because I mentioned the common denominator, that they were all relatively open compared to their neighbors, but the other common denominator was that they all ended, they all collapsed, because at some stage of their development, they felt so frightened by others, by minorities or foreigners or other powers or particular mighty groups within society, so that they began to take out one of their eyes to make the others suffer more. And if you do that twice, you're blind and you lose your way. So all golden eras historically collapsed, except one, and that's ours. This golden age that we're in, when we managed to create more technological, societal, economic progress than ever before. And the key message from history is that we shouldn't take this for granted, because the battle between open and closed will continue forever, because that's part of our human nature. We are amazingly adapted for openness, for exchange, to find new mutual ground with strangers, with foreigners, with others. But we also have an oversensitive smoke detector that, when we feel frightened, makes us do self-destructive things. So the message from history for the future is, don't take this golden era for granted. Arnold Toynbee, the famous historian, he always objected to the idea that we should use analogues or metaphors of societies, civilizations, and human organisms. Many people say that, look, this civilization got old and tired and it died. He said that's not how it works. The cultures, civilizations, they don't have a DNA, they don't have a pre-programmed or at least a default setting for how long they're going to be young and innovative. He said, on the contrary, all human civilizations died from murder or from suicide. And most often, it was suicide. And that, to me, is what classical liberalism and libertarianism is about. To reject suicide as a political plan of action. Don't make your fear of others become so self-destructive that you undermine the strengths of your own society and of your own group. We don't have to go the same way as history's golden ages. We just have to bring our minds up to speed with the beautiful world our minds have created. Or at least to learn from history, from psychology, from economics, why some of our instincts are not that beneficial in the world that we've created today. To understand and appreciate the value of openness and progress, and not fall for our closed-mindedness that's there. And that, to conclude, is why we are so desperately in need of market alternatives to government. Because when we understand them, when we learn about them, when we teach them, that's when we can deal with the default setting that we have in our own minds, and that will continue to be there. So I'd like to thank all of you for contributing to these market alternatives to governments. Nothing less than our civilization is at stake. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Johan, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. Can you just let me know if you can hear us properly right now?
I can hear you, but I would appreciate if I could hear you even louder.
Okay, so I'll try to speak a little bit more louder, because I think we have time for 2 questions, maybe 3 of them. So I would like each person who would like to ask a question to come up here, so the mic will be closer to the laptop. Okay, so get ready for some questions right now.
Hi, Johan. This is Ken again. And I want to tell you that your book is fantastic. Nikolai Hearing said it was the best book he ever read, and he sent me a copy, so I'm really grateful for it. I want to know your thoughts about the future of migration. Is it hopeful or miserable?
Well, hi Ken. Thank you for those kind words. I do appreciate it. And and all your hard work to spread that kind of message around the world. The future of migration right now, I'd say, is kind of depressing. Because when I look at history, I see that migration is one of the greatest benefits to society. I mean, lots of things can be done on Zoom, like this. Lots of things can be done through trade and container shipping. But when it comes to combining new ideas and creating new innovations, but so much of our knowledge, as Polanyi and Oakeshott and Hayek taught us, is non-verbal. It's not something that we write down in a memo and send to others about all the things that are important that we know, that can be combined with important things that you know. It's just things that we do, and that's why we have to meet. And that's why I wish I would have been at the meeting rather than here on Zoom, because we need those personal meetings. And many of the greatest discoveries and combinations that resulted in new innovations, great business models, and Nobel Prizes come from migrants coming from another culture and attacking the old problems of that new culture with their old mindset. That creates new, strange innovations. The Pfizer-Moderna vaccine against COVID-19 wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for Turkish migrants to Germany, combining their creativity with the state, the university knowledge about bioscience in Germany, combining that with big pharma in the US. You need those meetings constantly, and that's why we need migration. Right now, there's lots of backlash. It's not really related to migration, I think, because what we do learn from both history and psychology is that people attack different scapegoats. It might be an economic depression or a military threat. And then you become fearful of migrants or pornography or free trade. You just become fearful of openness. As long as we're fearful, that backlash will be there. But at the same time, let's not forget that migration as such creates such tremendous value. Just when people cross borders and become more productive, it creates such a large value that even those who are verbally opposed to migration are in favor of it. You can see that in Europe right now. The country that has accepted most new migrant workers in the last few years is the reactionary nationalist government of Homo, because they need migrants in their farms and in their service sector from Belarus, from Ukraine, and so on. So it keeps happening, even though the rhetoric is right now very destructive.
Good morning or good afternoon for us. It was a great message about openness and closeness. And it is, of course, a reflection of your thoughts about the permanent conflict between us and the others. I wonder if you already have thought why, in order to survive, we in society, when we don't have an adversary or an enemy, we furiously work to create an adversary or an enemy as a strategy or need to survive. What is your thought about that?
Yes, the problem is that's a very good question. My reading of much of cognitive and evolutionary psychology is that in-group loyalty and out-group discrimination is actually two sides of the same coin. Those who are most loyal, those who are most in favor of being solidaric and sacrificing themselves for their own group, are also the ones who are most opposed to those who do not belong to that group. Depending on any kind of arbitrary cue. It might not even be Kandinsky and clean. It could be the toss of a coin, according to certain social psychological experiments as well. And that tells you that, and you don't have to go further than a soccer field to see this, that you motivate some sort of energy and passion within your group by finding enemies. And so I think that's there, and that's why politicians often use these triggers this fear of finding scapegoats to trigger some form of loyalty. But that's actually, I would say, one of my favorite arguments for a pluralist, liberal society, where people order themselves, organize themselves according to lots of different identities, lots of different attitudes and ideas. I mean, traditional society could be judged to religion, or your gender, or your political ideology, or your work identity. But in a modern society, I am a libertarian, but I'm also a goth devoted to electronic music. I'm also a tennis player. I'm also a book collector. I'm also a father. I'm also a proud visitor to the rugged Swedish west coast, where I like to fish. And all of those things create other loyalties with other different circles that are unrelated to some of the things that we think are most strongly not really programmed, but at least sort of preset about ethnicity, linguistics, politics, religion, or something like that. And in a more pluralist society, we find that multitude of different identities, and that can give us other cues. The cue that, yeah, I might not like this person's religion or policy, or the fact that he's Norwegian and not Swedish, but I like his taste in music, or we can share stories about how difficult it is to be a father to two small kids and things like that. So I think we can always create in-groups and out-groups in a liberal society with a multitude of different identities, where it doesn't become two different tribes, but billions of different tribes, and they cross-intersect. And that makes all the difference. The risk is when it's politicized, and somebody tells us that this is the one set of identities that tells you whether it's us or them, and we have to fight against that. And that's why politics poisons everything when it comes to these identities.
Hi, Johan. This is John Chisholm from San Francisco. Good to see you again. And there you are. And can't wait to get my hands on your book and download it from Amazon or wherever. I find it helpful to think of a model, which I'd like to get your thoughts and reaction to, that there are two quite different roles we can fulfill or tasks we can perform to help make the world more positive some. The second of these two, is the more obvious one, and that's by finding win-wins among people. That includes finding new solutions to human needs where such solutions didn't exist before, in other words, by innovating. But the first role or task comes before that, and that's just showing and persuading others that win-win solutions exist, even if we can't see them yet. We have to discover them. Because if people don't believe that win-wins exist, then their most rational course of action is to play a zero-sum or negative-sum game. What are your thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you, good to see you again. I think that's absolutely right. And this is both the most important thing and the most difficult thing, because how do you show people something that's not there yet? And obviously that's the problem that all liberals and libertarians have always had. That the greatest things are yet to be seen, and they can be created if you do that. It takes some imagination, it takes some little bit of a leap of faith sometimes, but I think we have a very convincing case, even though the future and those opportunities they're endless, they're limitless, and also then difficult to point to and to explain in detail. But a very powerful case historically, to look at all the things that we now have and take for granted and cherish, and we think that they're so great that we have to protect them from openness. Well, we can actually go through them all and go backwards in cultural and technological and economic history, backwards in time, and show how they've been created through such a process of mutual gain, of experimental discovery, and of a non-zero-sum gains. Basically from the umbrella to the vaccines, from the Enlightenment to bioscience, it all comes from there. So if we combine it with that hard data, with that hope and that imagination, I think we have a very strong case.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, Mr. Johan Norberg. Have a good day, Mr. Johan Norberg. We hope to see you soon, and please come to Colombia. We're waiting for you here.
As soon as the world is open, I'd love to.